Hey everybody, so genuinely I forgot about this video, which is going to be making test predictions, okay? So before with simple linear regression, or we talked about the idea of training a model on one set of data, and then seeing how it performs on test data. I actually forgot to do that. So we're going to switch that today and get that. So if you see different numbers here from before, you will, it's just because I ran it again, and so it's randomized data. Now what we're going to do is change all of this to train, like we did before. So this is random x train, random y train is this random data. And then I'm going to get new random data. So I'm going to do random data, gather this. We'll set random test data. Random test data is going to be this call, which again has true beta and in that range and that same number. I mean, let's get less predictions as well. So maybe whatever n was before, we're going to do -2. So before n happened to be 5, so I guess we'll get 3 predictions, okay? So we're going to get new random data like that, and then we can get random, basically copy these same things, except this is all train, and this is going to be test. So I'll write that as test, write that as test, and this is going to be random test data. Okay, so now that we have new test data in here, then we can just do, this is good beta, that's going to stay the same. And we're going to have predictions these are the test or training predictions. So this is predictions underscore train. Okay, and then we're going to get the test predictions. So the predictions for the test set is going to be predictions test. Is that with random x, except now it's going to be random x test. Okay, and now what we're going to do is, remember the actual y values here, we can't train on this thing, okay? So the whole point is that when we're actually having a test data set, we don't really have this data, okay? So we're not gonna train our model on this y data because in normal circumstances, we don't actually have the values here, okay? Right now we do because we're testing the model and seeing how it perform, pretending like we don't have it even though we do have it. But when we're actually going to use the model, we don't actually have the y values here, okay? I hope that makes sense, because think about when we're actually using a model, where we're using it for, we want to make predictions on real data, and you're not going to be given the actual values, but we still need to see how good the model would perform if we did, and to do that, we would actually test it on the y values that we kind of held out. Okay, sometimes we call it a holdout set as well. Okay, so we do predictions test is those predictions, and then we can get, this will be train, I'll just change this to train MSE is going to be that thing. I'm not going to output that right now. So then test MSE, okay, test MSE is going to be the same model. Okay, so it's going to be predictions test. Notice this is the exact same model, just this beta. We train that model, and then we do MSE is random y test. Okay, so the random test data along with our test predictions test. And so if I output both of these things, train MSE and test MSE, note that we see that the test information is higher, or the test error is higher than the train error, because we trained the model on this data. Okay, so we trained it on this data, and then this MSE is about the error on that data. So obviously, if we train a model on particular data and we measure the error of that, it's going to be lower than if we keep the same model, and then we run that on testing information model. Like, our model hasn't seen this data before, but we're assuming it looks fairly similar to the training data. And so it's obviously going to get a higher error. And we'll talk more in specifics later about, the conversation there. It's a big one about overfitting and underfitting and all of that. We'll get into that. But I hope this makes sense in that our training error should definitely be lower than our testing error, because we trained the model on this data and we're testing it on this data, but it was only trained on this data. Okay, so I will see you in the next video when we use something called scikit-learn.